Hello and welcome to Transformation of a Nation. I am yours truly, Dr. Rhonda Travitt. Today I have as my special guest, and that's such an honor and a privilege, and I really say that, from Houston, Texas, State Representative Ron Reynolds. I'll give you a little bit about him, but I'll let him tell you more about himself. Um, He's in District 27, state representative. He attended Texas Southern University. He has his BS in public affairs, and he graduated magna cum laude. Okay. He also received a doctorate from Texas Tech University of Law, and he received his honorary doctorate of divinity. He's a former associate municipal judge for the city of Houston and Texas Southern University adjunct professor. Um, let's see, so much about him. Ron is a former president of the NAACP, Missouri, and Fort Bend vicinity. He is former president of the Houston Lawyers Association, 100 Black Men of America, Houston chapter Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I'm going to let him talk more about it with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, my special guest tonight, State Representative Ron Reynolds. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be on your show this evening. It is such a pleasure. I'm excited.
I am excited. And everybody on Facebook, YouTube, y'all tune in. We're going to podcast and hit your share button. And we're going to have some really, really good conversation. First of all, tell us, how have you been doing? How's your family in the with the COVID, everything in Houston? Because it got hit hard.
Well, thank you for asking. I mean, we've been blessed and very fortunate to be safe. But many people that we know have even been impacted by COVID. I had some close friends that were COVID positive. One of whom is a council member that was in ICU for some time, and thank God he pulled out. But the COVID has certainly had a devastating impact among our community. We've been a hotspot. And we're very grateful that we haven't directly been impacted, but certainly because of the people that we know and all the people suffering, not just in our community, but all over the state, the country, and the world, our heart goes out. Far too many people have died. Far too many people have become ill. And this has really been a very devastating pandemic that has the likes of which we haven't seen in centuries.
Yes. I want to get right into some hard questions with you. One of them is, how did Houston at all have protests? Our city, most definitely Atlanta, was affected by the protest and everything that was going on. So the protest and the pandemic and the police shooting. First of all, I'm just going to stop right there and ask about that.
Well, Doc, I mean, let me say, 2020 has been quite a year. I mean, I'm talking about, we haven't seen protests like this since the 50s and 60s when we were marching for civil rights. And then on top of that, like you said, the pandemic. This is a year unlike we've seen in decades. So George Floyd actually grew up in the Houston area. So it was intensified for us because he's a native of the greater Houston area. He came up in what we call, which is Third Ward, the trade, right over by where I went to school at, in the CUNY Homes in Third Ward. I'm a product, if you say, of Texas Southern University. So the Jack Yates High School, one of the most prominent high schools for African Americans in the city of Houston and the state of Texas. That's where George Floyd graduated from high school. He played football and basketball at Jack Yates High School. So it really hit home for us. And so we had a record turnout for protests, marching for police accountability, marching for criminal justice reforms and police reforms, because what happened to George Floyd was a microcosm of what happens to Black men all over this country, being targeted, the disparities that exist within our criminal justice system. And for many of us people of color, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're sick and tired of being treated like second-class citizens. We're sick and tired of seeing another hashtag, whether it's Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Eric Garner, Sandra Bland. You can go on and on and on. Tamir Rice. We've seen so much. And so I think people were just sick and tired. They were said enough. They were already dealing with the pandemic. People were at home and then they saw that footage. Well, that cop had his knee on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And you could hear him literally saying, "I can't breathe," calling out and hollering for his mom. I think that it was a terrible tragedy, and you've seen the likes of people coming together. And what's refreshing about it is people of different races. We saw whites and blacks and Asians and gays and straights, all people coming together to march in solidarity all across this nation to make a stance against racial discrimination and racial oppression and police brutality. So I was part of a group that's protested, and not just protesting to be protested, but people were out there risking their lives protesting, knowing the pandemic was out there because of the frustration, the sense that enough is enough. Not on our watch. Will we continue to allow this to happen to another unarmed Black man?
Wow, that is so true. That is so true. That's good. I guess I have a question for you, and you are an attorney, so from that legal standpoint, and I think those of us that are not in the legal system, how are these cops not being held accountable? We can count the number of them. And I think that's another frustration of our people, is that they're not being held accountable. So will there ever be a fair playing ground there?
That's an excellent question, and I'm glad that you asked that question. And one of the many reasons why there's so much frustration and why that we believe that this is, systemic racism continues to happen within police departments is because police officers more likely than often aren't held accountable. That basically our lives, the lives of African Americans, are disregarded and treated as less than property. People have more harsh consequences for the way they treat dogs and animals than they do Black men. And so one of the reasons is because usually police, when they do these things, the district attorney's offices don't prosecute them. Grand juries don't indict them and they no bill them. And so then when they do have trials, they're acquitted, and so we are left with the frustration of, do our lives really matter? I mean, do we count? And so part of it is several things. And that's why you see, I'm proud of the Congressional Black Caucus for filing the national legislation, the George Floyd Act. Here in Texas, Texas Legislative Black Caucus, which I'm proud to be a member of, we unrolled and unveiled 2 weeks ago our version in terms of state law to prevent any police officer from using chokeholds to apprehend suspects and other mechanisms to serve as a deterrent from what happened to George Floyd, so that it doesn't happen again. Or if it does happen, there will be substantial penalties that those police officers will have to pay for that. And so I'm hoping and I'm praying that during this next election that people vote like their lives depend on it, because they do, so that we can pass that federal legislation in Congress that is being held up in the U.S. Senate. We need to make sure that we have these policing reforms. And I just want to say this, just like in 1950, 55, when you had the tragic death, do you remember Emmett Till and the lynching that he experienced in Money, Mississippi for allegedly whistling at a white woman? He was lynched, that young boy, 14 years old. Well, his mom had that open casket for the nation to see what they had done to her baby boy, to not be held accountable. That was the catalyst to John Lewis getting in some good trouble. That was the catalyst for Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks' prominence and the Montgomery bus boycott. That was the catalyst for change that led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the many of the privileges that we enjoy today. I hope and pray that George Floyd's death was not in vain, that was the catalyst for these reforms that I just spoke of, that many of the people around the country have marched for, but that march, it needs to be marched onto the polls on November 3rd so that we can vote for change at the national level, all the way down to the bottom of the ticket at local races all across the state, in Georgia, in Texas, and all over, state representatives and congressmen, to change and enact these laws so that we send a message to police that if you do this, then you will be held accountable. So we need to change the laws. We need to hold our elected officials accountable so that they pass good legislation like we did after the death of Emmett Till.
I'm glad you made that point, and that's an awesome point. And one of the things I've been asking is, where are the leadership? Great men this year passed away. John Lewis, Elijah Cummings, and I just don't see. And Al Sharpton, who's well up and out, and we see the Rainbow Coalition is just going away. Who's stepping up in that place? And will there be anyone that will stand up? I don't think this generation has a defined leader to follow and a voice to listen to.
I agree with you. And unfortunately, many young people, they want instant gratification. They don't want to study or mentor under other some of our elder statesmen so that they can get that experience and that wisdom that you can't learn in the classroom. College don't teach that. You get that through experience. And just like, John Lewis learned,
college does not teach that for some.
You don't teach that in textbook.
College,
yeah. Right. Yeah. So if you think about it, Dr. King, John Lewis learned under him, as a young leader with SNCC. And so you had Julian Bond and others who learned from others. We need more young people to get engaged and involved and learn so that when these statesmen, whenever they retire or they pass on, there's not a dearth in leadership. Someone is ready to step up to the plate and hand the baton and move with it and run with it. So we need more people to be engaged. We need more people to volunteer. Many of it doesn't come with pay. So sometimes you have to do internships, but you have to understand that experience matters. And so we need more young people to be engaged and not have that microwave instant gratification mentality. You don't just go to school and boom, you're ready, or you don't just show up and boom, you're ready. It takes training, it takes learning through grassroots. And so I encourage young people to really volunteer with the NAACP or Urban League or with other leaders and learn those skills that it takes to be successful and to build those characteristics so that when your time is up, you're ready to step up. So we really do need to harness and to pass the knowledge and the wisdom for our young generation to be ready to lead.
Do you feel like our president has perpetuated this? I may not can ask you this, but you can answer it and may not can. Let's say, do you feel like our government has perpetuated and allowed this to go on for political aspirations?
Unfortunately, I do. I mean, I hate to say this, and I'm just going to keep it real. I think that we're seeing in the White House what I've never seen. I mean, maybe some people have felt these things, but the way he's emboldened racists to come out of the closet, to take their sheets off. They don't have to walk around with sheets. They can be emboldened by our president, who refers to neo-Nazis and skinheads as some very fine people, who wants to, quote unquote, make America great again. Those subliminal dog whistle messages about when our country was great, when people who look like us were probably in shackles and Jim Crow laws were on the books. And so it's incumbent upon us to reject those racist dog whistles and to not let them put us in a box and pigeonhole us and take us back to a place where we were, deemed inferior, where we didn't have the rights. Too many of our people struggled, died, and even, for made tremendous sacrifices for the freedoms that we enjoy today. And we cannot let the Donald Trumps and others who want to go back to the glory days of white supremacy. We can't allow that to happen. That's why it's incumbent upon everybody to exercise their vote. Your vote is your voice. And if you don't vote, or if you sit on the sidelines, then you're allowing people to make decisions on your behalf that aren't good. Like, they want to eradicate many of the voting rights that John Lewis and Dr. King fought for. They want to roll those back. They want to appoint Supreme Court justices that don't want to be fair on the Supreme Court. They want to take away, things that many of us have enjoyed. They want to take away access to affordable health care, Obama's signature achievement, so that people with pre-existing conditions don't have access to health care. They don't want to have people to have a livable wage. They don't really care about women having equal pay for equal work. Concerned about climate change and access to good quality public schools. They want to privatize and use money for elite private schools. So there's so much at stake during this election. And unfortunately, you got to be real about it, that many people don't have our best interest when it comes to African Americans or people of color. They don't have our best interests at heart. That's why you continue to see these disparities growing in income inequality, in healthcare, in housing, in unemployment. All of those things, we're at the bottom of the rung. And so we have to make sure that we fight and that we speak truth to power, and that we hold our elected officials accountable to be the voice for all of us, not just those who are privileged and who are well off and well to do, but the least, the last, and the lost.
State Representative, what do you think about our brown and Black people who say that racism is non-existent?
Oh, I say that first of all, sadly, they're very naive and they're ignorant to what's happening in the real world. We don't live in a utopia. Many people were hoping and under the false notion that in 2008, in November, when we elected Barack Obama as the president of the United States, that we were moving to a post-racial America. Well, sadly, the reality is that's not true. We have not fulfilled Dr. Martin Luther King's dream that all men would be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. We haven't reached that plateau yet. We still see, systemic racism and, the sentences that Black men get for doing the same crimes that white men do. You still see the disparities in pay and income between Blacks and white, and between women, Black women and white women. You still see the disparities within healthcare and housing discrimination. So on every level, you still see it in 2020. It exists right now. When you look at the news and you see what recently is happening all over the country to unarmed Black men, and you see white men who are arrested that have weapons, and Black men who don't have weapons and they're killed. So there's no other way to justify it, but we fit the profile. Black men are a threat, and Black women are a threat. Breonna Taylor. And so we have to make sure that we don't sugarcoat it, that we don't paint it with rose-colored lenses. That as Michelle Obama say, it is what it is. We have to be real about it. We can't close our eyes and pretend it doesn't exist. We know that these disparities still exist in 2020, just like they did, in other generations. And we see it in live and live in color when these footages come up, like George Floyd and so many other places. I mean, you look at what happens and you're like, my God, would that have happened if it was a white person? If that same person was not African American, would they have been treated this way? And we know the answer is no. And so that just means that those disparities that exist is based on race. And that's unfortunate. And we need to make sure that we don't fall into the trap of pretending like it doesn't exist just because we're in 2020. It still does exist at every facet of our government. Even me, as an African American elected official, with a law degree and this and that, have achieved success. I'm still treated differently than my counterparts who are Anglo. I'm still targeted. I'm still, profiled, by the police until they see, oh, well, you're a representative. Well, I don't have to be a representative to be treated fairly. But all men, regardless of their title or position, they should be treated equally. And that's what our framers said in the Constitution, that all men are created equal. Well, we know that we haven't reached that plateau yet from the Bill of Rights. We have not fulfilled America's promise. We failed on that.
With the election fastly approaching, what can we expect come November?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, with the pandemic and with people afraid to vote, are concerned about, going and voting, I encourage everyone to take advantage of mail-in ballots if they can, if they feel that they have some kind of pre-existing condition or they're concerned about their health. But by all means, this is the most critical election of our lifetime. There's so much at stake when it comes to our future. And we have to make sure that we vote in record numbers. Part of the problem that we're in right now, I'll be honest with you, is that we elected Barack Obama, true enough, in 2008, and we reelected him in 2012. But in 2016, we were asleep at the wheel, and many of us stayed home because we didn't have Barack Obama on the ballot, and we look what we ended up with. And I'm concerned that some people right now, when I hear them say, well, what difference does it make? And I'm like, I don't have much hair on my head, but I want to pull a little bit I have out. I'm like, are you kidding me? Have you not seen this last 4 years, what has happened to our country? And have you not seen the decisions that were made at the top and how they trickle down? Have you not seen many of the disparities that we face increase and intensify? And so I'm encouraging everyone to make sure that you do your homework and you vote and you exercise that right that was blood bought, because many of our forefathers and ancestors paid for it in red by the blood that was shed. And so make some good trouble. You may not be able physically to go protest. You may not, be healthy enough to be out there in the streets and everything, but you can go vote. Your vote is so precious. It is so fundamental. I'm encouraging everyone that this election is so critical for our futures at stake. When it comes to the Supreme Court, that's a lifetime appointment. Those decisions have impacts for decades and generations to come. If it wasn't for the Supreme Court, we wouldn't have had the Brown versus Board decision that ended desegregation. I mean, so many of these things that I'm talking about will end up at the Supreme Court, and that's why our court right now is divided almost partially based on 5-4. And so it's going to make a big decision this next election cycle of who sits on that Supreme Court. So everyone needs to vote. So much is at stake, but I'm hoping it's going to be a record turnout. I really am. I'm hoping that we're going to see record turnout like we've never seen before. That's what I'm hoping. But I'm concerned because there's so much apathy out there. But as people say, stay woke. I hope people are woke. I hope people are woke because of what they're seeing with the COVID-19 and what they're seeing with these police and interactions with black men. I'm hoping people are getting more woke now, and that wokeness stays through November 3rd. 2020.
Are they awake but feeling hopeless?
Yeah.
So will that stop them from going to the ballot? Because it's almost like it doesn't matter. Because
and I understand how that sense of despair and hopelessness can set in, because you're sick and tired, and you keep seeing people in office making promises, and they break them and they don't fulfill them, and you feel like I'm still left behind. So what difference does it make? That's what people want you to believe. The reason why they're fighting so hard to suppress votes and create these voter ID laws and these gerrymandering, because they don't want people to have access to voting. They don't want people to participate who look like us. They rather that we didn't. And so we cannot allow Russian interference. I mean, these Russian trolls to make us believe that we shouldn't vote. There's so much out there on the internet that we found this last election. There was so much voter suppression and trickery designed to people to suppress the vote. They want people to be depressed when they say, "Oh, forget about it. My vote don't count no way." And just that little percentage, enough people, that's going to make the difference. It did in Trump versus Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and this election could be very close. And so we can't let people believe that our vote doesn't count, or what difference does it make. It makes a tremendous difference. One of the things people not realize, and let me just say this quickly, is that when you talk about, police officers, well, police officers aren't elected, but guess who appoints the police chief? It's the mayors and city council in most cities. It's that those are elected, and they appoint the police chief, who then fills their police department and governs their police department. Just like the district attorney is an elected position. Okay, so they're the ones that decide whether or not to bring charges against police officers or citizens. It's an elected district attorney. The sheriff in counties is an elected position. That's the highest law enforcement officer in each county. And so elections have consequences. Elections matter when it comes to these criminal justice reforms. The laws that are made by Congress and state governments. Those are elected positions. At the federal level, it's the U.S. Congress. At the state level, is your state representatives and your state senators. So elections matter on every different level of government, and so people need to realize that when it comes to economic opportunities and jobs, that's politics. So politics impacts our schools. It decides how much money that we're going to fund for our public schools. Many parents are concerned about whether it's safe to go back. That's politics. That determines when our schools are safe to go to reopen. It's the politics, and you've seen national controversies about that in Georgia and other states, and so that's why elections matter. That's why we have to be engaged and hold our elected officials accountable, because it impacts our day-to-day lives on so many different levels.
That's so well said, so well spoken, so well said, and so direct for the people to really come out and vote. As an elected official, when you saw other elected officials, let's say in my great state here, Georgia, when you saw the governor and the mayor at odds and he's suing her, as an elected official, what was your thoughts and how did your heart feel to see that? Because that was division at a whole different realm and a whole different perspective.
Well, first of all, I was proud of Atlanta's mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms. I said, "Hey, bottoms up." She is representing. I was so proud that she stood up to the governor, who I believe was just capitulating to President Trump, that he wasn't doing what's in the best interest of the citizens of Georgia. And the Atlanta mayor was taking a stance to protect the citizens when it comes to masks and it comes to public safety. Here's the reality, is that unfortunately the Trump administration originally was denying science. They were denying the advice of the medical experts like Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Burge, who were infectious diseases and said, "Hey, masks help protect people." They were like, what's the, and we saw our numbers in America go up when other countries were going down. That was because of failed leadership. And unfortunately, the governor was not using science and not using medical experts. He was basically going based on Trump, who wanted to give a false sense of security so that they could open businesses back up so that people could get back out and shop. Well, that's great if it's safe, but it wasn't safe. And so what you were doing was endangering the lives of people, and that you were spreading it. And so that now we're still stuck with the COVID numbers very high. Instead of flattening the curve, they led people to believe that it was just like a little minor thing and it was going to go away. And that was back in, March. And now we're in, September. And here we are with hundreds of thousands of people that have died, unfortunately, in America. and we've had failed leadership. So I appreciate Mayor for standing up to a bully and saying, I'm going to protect my citizens. And I know, our economy will rebound, but you can replace, things, but you can't replace your life. You can't put a price tag on people's health, right? And many of those same people that were being impacted by COVID were people of color. Blacks and browns were the highest percentages of people that were impacted. To me, they were saying, well, it's not impacting us at this disproportionate rate, so we're fine to open things back up. And the mayor, I think, was making the right decisions by doing what the experts recommended that she do. So I thought that was a terrible mistake that was made by a governor that was too quick to just try to appease President Trump, who has done things to not in the best interest of Americans, but for corporations and for people who are looking for revenue, and not for what's best for the public health and safety of people. And that, to me, that's unfortunate when you have your priorities based on income versus what's best for people's overall health and safety. And I think that's terrible, and that's what you're seeing. And you're seeing right now the consequences of failed leadership, of not listening to the medical experts. That's what's gotten us in the position that we're in now, where we're leading the world in COVID positive people percentage wise. Right now we could have flattened the curve if we would have listened to the experts, but instead we were in a rush to open things back, to give the perception, a false perception, that everything's okay. Many people felt like it was a hoax. Oh, it's just some propaganda, it's fake news. This isn't real. Well, it gets real when people see their loved ones dying. When people see, people, even they were saying young people can't get it and young people are dying. So it's real. And I think finally people are waking up, and finally the Trump administration is forced to take masks serious because they didn't have a choice. It was hitting home. Lastly, look at Herman Cain, who is one of the most loyal Trumpsters, who was at the Trump convention, and he died of COVID, and then Trump didn't even mention his name. They were all there to prove a point, not wearing masks. So many people tested positive, and shortly thereafter, unfortunately, God forbid, God rest his soul, he passed away. It's real.
It's real. Okay. Here's a question that many have been asking. In the beginning, we saw so many and so much happening in New York. They have not found a cure for COVID per se.
Not yet.
Showed us where people were being put in 18-wheelers because there was not enough room in the morgues.
That's right.
We don't see or hear any of that at this point. So a lot of people are questioning everything. Can you tell me from that perspective what is going on and what made the significant difference? Was it the ventilators? I don't think it was just the ventilators, but now you don't see that. Travesty, was it a fear tactic? What was happening, and why isn't it being constantly before, still now? Is it because they want the economy open, or is things still happening to that magnitude? Because it was really bad, and it was a fear factor for the world.
Well, first of all, I commend Governor Andrew Cuomo for his handling of the pandemic and the rise and escalation of the numbers in New York. They were the epicenter of the COVID-19 crisis because it's an international city, and many people that had came back from China and across the world to New York, an international city, they were spreading the COVID-19 at an alarming rate. New York is very close together. I mean, people are close together, so there's not as much opportunity for social distancing and whatnot. So people were not quarantining, and they were transmitting it, which most experts believe it was airborne. and there was no type of mask and protective personal protective equipment that people were using. So it spread at an alarming rate that they could not uh, really handle it in terms of, like you said, the morgues. They didn't have enough capacity to handle the dead bodies, and so it wasn't until Governor Cuomo and his medical team and his all the people that were working on this COVID-19 response and relief efforts to help kind of flatten the curve in New York based upon the lockdown that they had. It helped to flatten the curve there because he was not listening to President Trump. But I can tell you that uh, the economy did, suffer tremendously as it has across this country. But what they were able to do was to gradually flatten the curve through, I don't really call it a fear factor, but really through the reality of letting people see the devastation that was happening there in New York. I mean, people saw that people were dying at an alarming rate, and people that had pre-existing conditions, they were really, really at risk, particularly elderly, African Americans, and people that had underlying health conditions. They really were at the really epicenter of those deaths, and so we have made some progress since then. We have made some advances, but unfortunately, we don't have a vaccination yet. There's some in trial periods, and so until we have a cure, until we have a vaccination, people still have to take these precautions because the medical experts predict that there will be a second wave. We still haven't even gotten past this first wave yet, and then they predict that with flu season coming, it's just going to be exponentially worse because you're going to have flu season that we're about to go into on top of the COVID, and they're encouraging people to get flu shots. They're encouraging people to continue to practice social distancing, good hygiene, avoiding large gatherings, wearing facial coverings. And so until we get to a point where there's a vaccination, or until the numbers go down significantly, where we would quote flatten the curve, we're going to continue to have to be a heightened alert on how we go about and interact. Many social gatherings are going to be postponed until we can get a handle on it, and that's for the betterment of our community. So I think there's a lot that we continue to have to learn and make these sacrifices so that we can get past this and have a great testimony of the resilience that we had when we worked together, came together as a community. We have to be our brothers and sisters keeper because many people are suffering. We see record unemployment. People are lonely. They're stressed. They're suicide. The domestic violence is going up. Divorces are going up. People are panicking. People are stressed, and so we have to give hope and inspiration, and that's what we're missing from the Oval Office. We're missing that inspirational message that Barack Obama gave us of hope and change. People need that, and so right now there's so much negativity, there's so much chaos. We need people to give hope, and so I'm encouraged, that we can have this platform this evening to talk about these things, to let people know that people care and that we believe that hope and change can come if people vote for that in November.
I think you just speaking to it and speaking to the audience has really helped, and it helped to educate a lot of us into what, to the government's insight. We can all be talking peer to peer, but you gave us, a whole panoramic view of everything that's been happening in our country. Last question, if I maybe, because this is so good to me.
Oh, thank you.
Our people are very skeptical and they're very cautious of Biden and, Miss Harris. So, what do you say to that?
I understand. I don't want to diminish people's concerns about Biden or Kamala Harris, because they both have certain aspects of their past life that you can call into question or controversy. So they're not a perfect candidate by all means. But here's the reality: there is no perfect candidate. If you're waiting on perfection, then you're never going to have a candidate that's going to meet that definition. There's always going to be someone, if they've been around for a while, they've done something that has let you down. We all make mistakes. As the good book says, that we all sin and fall short of God's glory. So if perfection is what you want, then you'll never be satisfied with any candidate. But here's what I encourage people to do. Look at their body of work and see, and then judge on the scale. Is there more good than bad? And then you compare and contrast. It's going to be either Trump, Pence, or it's going to be Biden, Harris. There is no third party that's going to come. There's nobody else. There's no savior that's going to come in. No write-in candidate. It ain't going to be Kanye West or whoever else on top. It's going to be either Trump or Biden. So you take your pick. As the old folks say, or some people say, well, the lesser two evils. You know, I don't really consider that a valid argument, but if that's the way you want to look at it, then you got to compare who is more analogous, or to your issues that you stand for, whether it's education or healthcare or jobs or criminal justice or civil rights or anything. You got to look at who do you think is more closely aligned to your core values and your family's values, and then you have to make the decision who you're going to vote for that's going to be in your best interest. And I don't think that's a close contest. And so I know many people or their purity. They want a perfect candidate, or else they're going to sit this one out. Shame on you, because you're giving your vote away. You might as well vote for your opposition if that's what you're going to do. I encourage everyone to be the adult, to peel the onion back and look at it closely. Take the emotions out of it. There is no perfect. Maybe your candidate didn't win, and you're sitting this one out because you think your person should have won, or Biden should have picked someone else for his VP or whatever. If that's your litmus test, then you are doing yourself and this country a disservice, because one of those two tickets is going to be the next president for the next 4 years that will shape our country for generations to come. And if you don't realize that, then you're not really living in reality. You're living, and you might as well have your eyes closed because you're blind. And I want people to open their eyes and be enlightened. And the truth is, that is what it's going to boil down to. And for me, it's not a close call when it comes to who I think is, has the temperament, who has the kind of character, that has the kind of discernment, that has the kind of leadership, the kind of compassion. I mean, here, you're in Georgia. When John Lewis, a statesman, one of the most noble men that has ever served in the United States Congress, President Trump tried to diminish him and his legacy, and didn't want to even acknowledge that he was a great leader or a congressman and his contributions, and basically said, well, he didn't come to my inauguration. I mean, how childish is that? This man is 6 feet under. He did the same thing with Elijah Cummings, and so he has a history of being like a child. I don't want my children looking up to anyone like that. What kind of example does he serve for us as Americans, for our country, for our children, when he, will target people that he don't like, whether it's men or women? I've seen how he talked about people with intellectual disabilities. I've seen how he's mocked people that didn't weren't maybe attractive to him, and talked about them, where he's called people names. He uses his Twitter like a little kid. And so that person doesn't have the temperament to have his fingers on the nuclear, to have the codes to the nuclear weapons, right? I'm concerned that this person is reelected for another 4 years. Lord help us. Who knows what this man will do? He's unhinged. And he knows or thinks he's above the law because he should have been impeached and held accountable for his crimes, and he wasn't. He's emboldened. And he'll have an attorney general that lets him get away with murder. He said it before. I can go out on Pennsylvania Avenue or Fifth Avenue and shoot someone, and he wouldn't have repercussions. So for me, it's not a close call. And I want people to wake up and really smell the coffee and take a serious look at and see, do you want another 4 years of a person with this kind of temperament, this kind of belief about blacks and minorities and Muslims and people of different races and socioeconomic status? I say no.
Was it even an eye opener when he did not attend for the Congress, the Senate, the legislature as a whole, when he would not attend Elijah Cummings or Congressman Lewis Memorial?
Absolutely. I mean, he's so childish and so petty. He has not rise to the level of president of the United States. That is the most powerful position, arguably, in the world. You're the leader of the free world. That is the coveted position. When people aspire to be something one day, when children are dreaming, you dream of being president. That's the highest thing, honor that you could ever have. I mean, you're being the history book forever. You are supposed to be someone who is, I mean, world renowned, and it's been diminished by him. He's diminished the statue of the position as a reality show host. I mean, it's like we're living a reality show, but it's real, and real lives are at stake. And he's emboldened his family, and he's ran it like it's The Apprentice. He's had the highest turnover of staff. He made the worst decisions that we've ever seen, and it's all playing out before our very eyes. How could anyone want to reward that kind of bad behavior with another 4 years? I mean, it defies logic to me. And I mean, I take my partisan head. Yeah, I'm a Democrat, but people can say what they want to say about George Bush. He wasn't Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan. I mean, people before they were. Trump is way worse than Richard Nixon. He makes him look like a choir boy. And so people just need to wake up. People need to be cognizant of what is taking place and not make excuses for him. Because as Maya Angelou said before, when people show you who they are, you need to believe them, and believe them the first time. When Trump has showed us over and over and over again who he really is and who he values, and that's himself. He's selfish. He's narcissistic. He's an egomaniac. I mean, he is a misogynist. He is an elitist. I mean, he is everything negative. There's no statesmanly qualities about him. There's no humility about him. There's no Christian values about him. There's no family values about him. There's no compassion about him. He doesn't seem to care about all these people dying of COVID. He doesn't seem to care about all these people that are unemployed and suffering, because his friends, his rich, well-to-do country club friends, they're not suffering. In fact, their stocks are going up. It seems like he's catering to them. He's catering to the white privileged classes. He's singing dog whistles to them, where he was even saying the other day that boy that went and shot the white boy, that was 17. He was applauding him, and so he's sending the wrong messages to the country. And to me, it's time out. It's enough is enough. It's time for us to wake up, knowing that we can do much better than that. I would rather, personally, and this may sound very emphatic, but I'd rather elect Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck than president. Because I know what I get with him. But with this guy, I mean, this is to me, he has no moral compass at all. He has no moral compass, and that's dangerous. That's very dangerous. Our health and safety is at stake. Our lives are at stake. Our future is at stake, and we can't afford to have someone with that kind of temperament leading this country and leading this world. And here's another thing: people need to wake up. This is someone who it seems that the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, it seems like he's Trump's puppet.
Yes.
And he pulls the strings. I mean, that's crazy. If Obama would have did just a fraction, just one of the things that Trump has done, they would have burnt the White House down. If Obama would have done just some of the stuff that Melania has done, they would have I mean, come on, y'all. Wake up, y'all. That's what I'm saying. Wake up, America. Enough is enough.
Now, when you said Putin, I have a question because
Good.
I heard, I don't know that it's true, but I'm going to ask you because
Good.
I'm sure you would
Yeah.
know. Is it true that he's trying to pass a law that says that presidents can stay in the White House longer, like it is in, like Putin, who has 42 years? I think he's trying to idealize and make America with that system. Talk
Yeah. I
to
mean,
that.
yeah. Trump has made jokes of it before, but I think that's what he wants to do. He wants to live in a society that he can stay like a king, or not a democracy, but a autocracy, where he can lead like Putin does in other countries. He really does seem to look up to them, and he wants, yeah, Kim Jong Un. He he wants to he epitomizes them, and if he had the power, see, Congress does that, but if he had it his way, he would certainly do that. And in fact, when people have asked him if he doesn't win, would he leave the White House? He's left that question open. He's left the question that he would not legitimize the outcome of the election if he's not satisfied with it. He's already made mention of the mail ballot fraud and this and that to set the stage for him contesting and not wanting to leave the White House. So yeah, I have grave concerns. I don't put anything past him, nothing past him. Uh, in fact, he had floated out there that because of the pandemic, that maybe we could just put the election back. But only Congress has that power. But he floated that idea out until he was shot down. So yeah, I think he would push the envelope. I think that if he had the power to do it, he would do it. Thank God that we have checks and balances in this country, and he doesn't have the individual authority without the authorization of Congress to do it. But he certainly has pushed the envelope, and believes that he's above the law. And I think that it wouldn't surprise me if he was elected to another term, that he would try to change the rules so that he could be reelected again. So that would not surprise me. I wouldn't. Honestly, I don't put anything past this man. He is a very vile person that does not have a much of a moral compass to me, and I believe he would do anything to stay in power, so that he can continue to push himself and position himself and his family to enrich them. Because that's what he's done in the White House. He's enriched himself, his son-in-law, his daughters, his children. He's done that where you've never seen a president do that before because of conflicts of interest and nepotism. There's certain rules. All those rules he's thrown out the way, and no one is really holding him accountable. So,
Why? Why? That's my question. Why?
because people have let him. People seem to be afraid of him in Congress. I mean, the Republicans seem to be afraid of him. He's went after some and helped some of them be defeated, and they're afraid of him. He really has the bully pulpit. He uses his Twitter to intimidate and incite people, incite violence, and I think that some people are just afraid to stand up to him. I mean, I'm thankful that we have some leaders like John Lewis and Elijah Cummings who stood up to him, and look what how he tried to diminish them. Maxine Waters
Oh
stands
my
up to him.
God.
Nancy Pelosi stands up to him. Here in Houston, our own Congressman Al Green and Sheila Jackson Lee have stood up to him. But he's a bully. He's a real bully, with a huge bully pulpit, and many of his Republicans are afraid of their own shadow, to stand up to him, and they've emboldened him to do more things like he's done. If he doesn't like something, he attacks people, and he's ruined people's character, because he didn't like something that they've done. There's some honorable Republicans that have tried to stand up to him, like Mitt Romney, and very few. They're in the minority, and when they do, he's vicious at the way he attacks them, and many of them just are afraid to withstand that kind of scrutiny. So, you know. Yeah, I know, right? I know, yeah. Wake up, America.
Wake up, America. Wake up. I'm just speechless about everything. that has happened. Who's that? Why? She said, why are no other Republicans running against him? Someone is asking.
That's what I thought too. I mean, they're afraid of him. See, the Republicans are driven. Trump has really brought out a lot of those who were uh, not happy that we had a black man in office for 8 years. And so they are just so happy that they don't have Barack in office that they are happy with him. He's made them feel comfortable about, talking like diminishing Black Lives Matter. He's diminished civil rights. He's diminished voting rights. And so they're accepting and embracing of him because he's done things that they want to do privately. He's done them publicly. So he's emboldening them to feel comfortable in many of the races that they are. And then that's what he's done. To me, he's done, and that those whites that believe that blacks should be, inferior to the back. He's made them feel very comfortable with this Trump's America, and to me, that's the only way you can acquiesce what he's doing, because it's not in the best interest of our country. It's in the best interest of those who believe that they want to take their country back. This whole "Make America Great Again," you know what that's all about. Making America great again by what? You know, and that's the problem that we have now. And let's be real about it. And so that's why people of good conscience, our white brothers and Hispanic and Asian brothers, we all need to stand in solidarity to say that united we stand, divided we fall, and we cannot allow President Trump or the likes of him to divide us and put us in a place where we lose many of the gains that were made from the civil rights movement and John Lewis making some good and necessary trouble, and Barack Obama and many of the things that he did to help us with healthcare and some of the advancements for equal pay. Trump is trying to roll all of those things back, and we can't allow that to happen on our watch.
Wow. I thank you so much today for being on Transformation of a Nation. I think you have enlightened. I am so enlightened about so much. I think you blessed our audience.
Oh,
You've given them something, and they want to go out and vote. I know I want to.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I just want to thank you for allowing me to be a guest on your show. I consider it a very, very strong privilege. You are phenomenal. You are a great transformational leader. I'm blessed to know you. I thank Cynthia Allen for the recommendation. I thank you, and I want to continue to pray for your health and strength, because we need voices like you to empower our community to be engaged, to be informed, to be aware of things that impact them. So thank you for having this platform for us to dialogue and exchange ideas and have this great conversation. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you so much. How can we reach you? How can people find you on social media, or if you're on social media?
Sure. I try to be very transparent. I'm on Facebook at Ron Reynolds. I'm on Instagram at Ron E. Reynolds. I have a Twitter account at Ron Reynolds. And so people can feel free to, send me a message. I'm always try to be transparent to keep relevant information out there to empower our people so that they can be informed and inspired to make prudent decisions. I try to give good factual information, not fake news and not, stuff that's not real. But I try to give good factual, solid information that is fact checked, that is good guidance, that people can rely on. So people can feel free to always to reach out to me or look at my information if they want to be informed about issues that impact particularly communities of color. And I have a lot of information out there about that, because someone has to speak out for them. I'll leave you with this. With the scripture that really propels me and motivates me to be the person I am, the leader that I am, is found in Proverbs 31, verse 8 and 9. It says, "Speak out for the one who cannot speak. for the rights of those who are doomed. Speak out, judge fairly, and defend the rights of oppressed and needy people. And I believe that's what God has positioned me to do. To whom much is given, much is required. And I challenge everyone to use their voice to help somebody else. That is really our ultimate calling. Is how, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, the great question is, what are you doing for others? What are you doing for the least of them? And that's what I think all of us need to answer that call.
It has been amazing. Thank you for being in a position of transformation and transformation of our nation. I pray that you would continue. I pray that you would be to do. I pray that your voice never be silenced, because you gave me a whole different respect for the political arena. The truth, and you spoke it in power. And I'm all about speaking unapologetically. So you wasn't concerned about anything. You were giving your truth, and the truth that the people need to know. And so may people you be multiplied. May your voice expand as Jabez, and may your territory be expanded beyond, because we need to hear you. Are you up for any elections anytime? You've been there
I'm up for re-election for November. I'm on the ballot too, so I'll be seeking my 6th term in office. And so God will says the same. I'll be re-elected so I can continue to be a voice for the people, fighting for justice and equality for all. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm claiming victory. I speak it, and I don't take anything for granted. So I hope that my constituents will vote to re-elect me. I believe that I've done a good job, and I can always strive to do better, but I work hard every day, and each day that God gives me, I consider it a gift, and I make the most of it. So I strive harder to be improved every day to be a better me.
Well, we will continue, and my sister, people saying, you got my vote. So everyone in Houston, all my friends, please go in the Missouri City area. Please vote for State Representative Ron Reynolds. Will you ever run for president? How about that?
Oh, I don't. Hey, that would have to. That is just like people get their call in to preach. That had to come straight from God, because I have no desire for that. But hey, whatever God's will, He says the same. That I'm gonna be obedient to God's will. I'm very happy as state representative, but I don't know what the future holds. I just know that I'm a humble public servant. That I'm always willing to be obedient and look to where God leads me. So I'm very happy where am now, but I can't predict what'll happen in the future. But I don't foresee that as part of my future. But you never can close any door. So who knows what God has in store for the future.
Well, congratulations. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been Transformation of a Nation. And I know with State Representative Ron Reynolds, you have been transformed and illuminated into a whole nother realm. We thank him. I ask you to tune in next week on Wednesday, same time, same place. I am Dr. Rhonda Travitt with my special guest, my, I don't want to say homeboy, because I don't want to disrespect that. Texas folks. I
want to be a homeboy.
Senator, State Representative Ron Reynolds. Y'all, God bless you, and I will talk to you next week. We are out.